The beginning followed with the understanding that in our life, not always everything went as we wanted. The life of the main character was similar to a continuous confusion, which everything rolled at the speed of light in Tartarara. The girl pierced a small trembling. She just wanted a calm and long life, but life turned out to be more cunning. It would be great to wish to be ordinary statist. The woman was on her knees in front of the guy who was lying on the grass. She tried to wake him with hope and asked if he was in order, but he did not answer. It was a disaster. Her eyes filled with fear and anxiety. Did she really knock out the Duke of Raka Aintia? This brunette, which was now lying in front of her unconscious, was a gray cardinal and a true villain. What did she do? The Duke of Raka Aintia was supposed to conclude the main character, like a bird in a cage, so that it would not cause problems. And after that, he, being a villain, would attack the imperial family, standing at the head of the monsters. Experiences in waves covered the girl with her head. Could she say that she had just raised a black flag? She wanted to quietly escape, but at the same moment, Aisha, the younger sister of a dark-haired guy, appeared nearby. And after her, a little boy appeared, her twin brother, Delcane Aintia. He got up a little behind his sister. Children with horror noticed that their older brother did not open their eyes even after their requests. It looked like he died. The children, although they were small, but hung over a fair-haired heroine with a frightening dark shadow, obscuring the sun. The eyes of the twins expanded dangerously, and they asked in a murderously cold voice, "Did you kill our brother?" The fair-haired tried not to lose her composure, and, nervously rubbing her neck, said that there was a misunderstanding. But the younger ones did not want to listen to her. They shouted at her, called the evil saint, and said that their brother died because of her. As these kids boil, the girl's face was increasingly pale with fear and tension. She was crazy that the children were so noisy and did not give her the opportunity to finish, but their brother was still alive. All troubles in the life of a fair-haired man began with the moment when her life rolled down straight into a cliff. It all happened about an hour and a half ago. Someone called a dark-haired one by name, Maya, asking whether she was ready. The girl was respectfully called the mistress, and she herself was in a snow-white, majestic temple at the palace. But the difficulty was that the last thing the girl remembered was how she fell from the stairs. She could not understand where she was, and why all the people looked at her so strangely. Is she reborn? The priest asked Maya in order of Li, and the girl did not even immediately realize that he had turned to her. But the man made her think, because for some reason the name Maya seemed to her vaguely familiar. And then the girl dawned on where she heard him, and in whose body she ended up after she died in her world. She moved to the body of one of the heroines of the novel, The Flower of Shakira, the one she herself read before her death. Her surprise knew no bounds. She really became a secondary character in the novel? Was it possible? Quickly pulling herself together, Maya was emergency tried to understand what her heroine was going to do and where she was. The priest, without knowing it, gave a hint and asked, "Didn't she say that she would go to the prayer hall?" He reminded the girl that she promised to come there before giving her blessing, and asked if she had forgotten. Memories of the events of the novel surfaced in Maya's head. She moved on the day when Maya aroused her abilities. According to the plot, Emperor Canis should have received a blessing on the day when Maya aroused her abilities. And about a year later, Maya would have sacrificed herself by conveying her abilities to Kinesus in order to save him from death. Although she did not have time to learn from the novel what abilities she would appear, she was sure that she would die in just a year. It was insanely scary to realize that she became just a step for the protagonist, Emperor Canis. Suddenly, Maya told others that she had to admit something to them, but her desire was crossed. There was no time for this. The saint was not so simple and insisted that it was really important. Then she was allowed to speak. Putting her hand on her heart, the fair-haired person took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts, waiting for everyone to look at her. The girl's face instantly became strict, and she announced in a serious tone that she had not yet aroused her abilities. She hoped that people would immediately believe her, but one of the employees stubbornly denied the words of the saint. For some reason, the woman was sure that Maya was wrong. The woman took her hands and asked for permission to check it. The blonde froze for a moment and completely losing the speechless. What did this woman do right now? The world around seemed to froze, and both girls for a short moment lost clear outlines, obscured by a bright light flash. When the woman finished, she noticed that Maya was lying. She definitely woke up. But how did she find out? The dark-haired person dutifully bowed and said that, in connection with this fact, the girl could go to the altar right now. She was also reminded that, like the daughter of God, she should never have forgotten about elegance and nobility. Things were bad. Was it now Maya to bless Kines at all? Or after that she will get sick and die? Having delayed her salvation plan, the girl first, to take suspicions, knelt down, starting a prayer. She folded her palms in a prayer gesture, offering others to all pray to the god Tritos together. Maya herself thought that this time she would not allow fate to take her life, so it was necessary to escape from the temple. Now there was the most suitable moment, because all those present prayed with their eyes closed, but there was nobody outside the door. The fair-haired focused on this option, because it is not known when she still has such a chance to escape. Raising the hem of her dress to run more conveniently, the blonde with all her legs rushed to such a desired exit. Having noticed this, the employees felt confusion mixed with undisguised anxiety and tried to shout the saint. But the girl completely ignored their screams and rushed away from them, sparkling heels. In parting, the girl waved her hand with a joyful smile. She was clearly not going to follow the original story. Maya heard people fussing behind her, dulling her in pursuit, but she would never let herself catch. In the original story, she was not an important character and scapegoat, but now she escaped to survive. Suddenly, a magic bird appeared behind Maya, that she persuaded the girl not to make stupid things and return to the temple. The chick, overflowing with a bright blue color, said that he was a god Tritos, and Maya heard him because he awakened his strength. He noticed that over the years of sleep, the girl had puberty and asked, "Are you really running away or walking?" The bird with irony noted that the fair-haired people seemed to like to walk while they were chasing her. Maya sent him away. The farther she ran into the forest, the harder it became. She tried to mentally figure out how far she was still to run, but, having heard the screams of the clergy behind her back, she seemed to open a second wind. It was too early to relax. The girl decided to hide somewhere for a while, so she stopped at a wide trunk of a high tree. She, deprived of her last strength, leaned on a tree. The muscles were sick, like the lungs. She is so tired, as if she would die now. The bird, who called itself God, continued to circle over the girl. He asked if she thinks that the escape will change something. The girl certainly did not know the answer to this question, but I was sure that it was better to do so than to die a year later. The wagon, whose body was overflowed with blue, like a sea wave, slyly asked where Maya knew her fate. The girl was dumbfounded. Did even the local god knew that they were in the novel, and that she was not a real Maya? Trying to take away suspicions from herself, the blonde said that she just succeeded in seeing the future in some dreams. The chick stared at her in disbelief. Nevertheless, it seemed that he had believed, and said that it should be fortune tricks. God explained that he would definitely correct her soon. Maya will not die, but fall asleep with an eternal dream. She asked what's the difference. He replied that the holy body would have to fall asleep, and her soul to go to him forever, forever. God asked her, if she could wake up 100 years later, would she return to the temple at his request? She asked, "Are you really not sorry for me?" The chick replied that it was a pity, like all his children on this earth. Maya noticed that most of all, God loved Kines Khan. He replied that he was interested in children with his abilities. Poor Kines, probably, could not fall asleep now. This is all because the human body entered the kingdom of God. This was a self-exposed process. The more the guy spends energy, the more difficult it was for him to fall asleep later. God asked, "Do people have no choice in life?" What Maya was angry because she had to run away due to hopelessness. Maya also recalled that she was also the daughter of God, which the chick was very surprised, because she completely forgot about it. They discussed what a person had to be found once, that he could lull the emperor. For example, Reina Adrian. Maya suggested this girl because she was the main character of the novel, but God protested he needed Maya. The chick said that if the girl did not want to save the emperor, he should even warn him in order to save his strength. But Maya refused. While there was a gray cardinal, Raka Aintia, The emperor could not help but use all his forces. Raka even abducted the main character in the novel, because of which Hinisu had to be exhausted and defended. But whatever happened between the main characters of the novel, Maya was not going to sacrifice her life for them. God, who initially appeared in order to convince her, asked the girl to think about her choice again. This was already in earnest. The fair-haired one broke out. How much could she say that she had to return to the temple? The girl decided to teach the annoying god. She wanted him to feel a threat to his life, like her. Maya wanted to scare him and grab him so that he understood why she ran away, worried about her safety. The girl threw herself behind the chick, trying to catch him, but he was much faster and more agile, joining her. The chick was little amused by the situation. In despair, he rushed through the air from side to side, dodging tenacious hands. But at some point, he managed to quietly hide, disappearing from sight of the girl, which led her to a dead end. Maya looked around, trying to find traces of God, and accidentally noticed some color spot among thick green grass. Thinking that it was a chick that hid in the bushes, the girl attacked him, grabbing tightly with both hands. "That's just someone whom she grabbed," quietly gasped, which forced the fair-haired person to be wary and freeze. It turned out to be not a chick at all, but a high brunette, the very gray cardinal that Maya was so afraid of. The girl's reaction was a little slow, so the first thought that she had, the guy had very soft hair. She did not immediately realize that she was Raka, so she was not afraid. God noticed that she caught something strange. The chick said that if someone saw her, he would have thought that the Maya pervert obsessed with other people's hair. After that, she immediately let go of the dark-haired, and a little awkwardly asked how he felt. To her surprise, he fell on the grass and did not react at all to the surrounding factors. "He's not dead?" The girl froze, experiencing strong guilt. Really, having escaped from the temple, she immediately became a cold-blooded killer? With a tangible disappointment, the fair-haired drew attention to the fact that the territory fled. He also dared to call himself by God. The girl held out her hand to the young man's face, and with a relief realized that he was breathing, so he was alive. She did not want to think that, due to the fact that she pushed him, he could have a concussion. Suddenly, not far from children's voices were heard, which clearly quarreled because of some little things, discussing something of their own. And the next instant, these children came to Maya, already close enough to notice the brother who was lying on the grass. The fair-haired finally drew attention to the guys who were too quickly fussing, shouting that their brother died. Turning a look from his brother to the priestess, the unbearable children, of course, thought that this girl was the fault of what happened to Rach. She tried to besiege the children and explain that there was a misunderstanding, and they raised panic from scratch. But the Gemini did not want to listen to her. They said that they had come to the forest for the flowers of Shakira, and the priestess attacked them. The fair-haired did not quite understand why the children were so focused on death, and explained that their brother was not dead. But it was more difficult to convince stubborn children than she thought. Covered by anger, the guys decided to kill her as revenge. Maya asked the children not to make nonsense. Is Aisha, the younger sister of Raka, could use black magic? In an attempt to enlighten the younger ones and save her life, the saint said that she could save their brother if they stop. Aisha told the girl to stop lying to them because she felt that this was only a trick, but her brother intervened in their conversation. The twins said that the words of a girl may be true. The girl, who had already begun to conjure, was unhappy. The fair-haired almost cried with happiness. Thank God that at least Delcane remained calm and listened to her. The sister asked the brunette as a priestess could save their brother, and he replied that the girl was an adult and educated person. He recalled how the older brother told them that only once in his life an adult could save someone from death. As an example, Delcane cited a situation when their brother saved Puiri, whom they raised. But this did not quite convince Aisha, because Puiri, after salvation, became completely strange, so the priestess could not spend her. Maya knew that their pet has changed due to the use of Rach of dark magic. The children were so naive and believed in everything. Delcane, convinced that his brother was dead, although it was not so, persuaded his sister, thinking that it was the only one to save him. Aisha was unhappy that her brother constantly shifted to her and interfered with merits to punish the evil priestess. Nevertheless, after a few moments of silence, Aisha seriously and slightly turned to the fair-haired. The girl ordered her to save their brother, as the twin wanted. Just in case, she clarified exactly whether the priestess is capable of it. The girl confirmed, but after that she was clearly made to understand that if suddenly nothing happens, then they would kill her. Maya was little frightened by the threats of the guys, because she was confident in herself, so she offered to start moving to another place. She thought that Rocky would need some time to wake up, and hoped that everything would be in order with him. After some time, the Trinity, along with the adopted brother in her arms, reached a small wooden house. The children held a priestess in the house, all three grunts from the fact that Raka was too heavy for them. You need to put it on the bed. Absolutely exhausted, Maya suggested that the youngest lay Raka so far on the floor and rest a little. Aisha almost agreed, but her brother shouted at her, saying that she should not obey this evil priestess. Therefore, without taking breaks, the Trinity made the last jerk to the bedroom, and all together laid the young man in bed. Maya scratched his head and sighed heavily. They barely dragged the guy home, but still could do it. By the way, Raka's body turned out to be much stronger than she thought initially, which was very curious for the saint. While the girl stood and talked about something, the children talked among themselves, and then suddenly turned to May. Aisha, clearly very frightened, begged the fair, haired to save their brother. These children sometimes really scared the priestess with their behavior. Delcane sternly told his sister that it was not worth rushing the fair-haired. Otherwise, she would die from fear faster than Raka would save. Maya noticed that it was a really difficult task, so she invited the children to take a short break. To herself, the blonde noticed that her brother often controlled Aisha, so she should stay closer to him. Maya did not know how to hide her cunning thoughts, which alerted the children, because she looked like a real villain. As a result, the girl said that she would still try to revive their brother, but it is quite possible that she will need their help. In the younger's head, there were suspicions of this plan, because their older brother saved Query alone. But Maya quickly found what to answer, saying that Raka was simply very capable. Children were filled with pride and enthusiasm. Children literally shone with joy. And suddenly, the blonde felt how strong the aura had an aura in children. It was black magic. Nevertheless, the girl managed to inspire confidence in the children, so they willingly agreed to help her than they could. At first, Maya asked them in whose house they were. The kids of the Aintia family would never live in such a hut. Delcane explained to the girl that they did not live here. Raka used this house during the search for Shakira flowers. The Shakira flower was named after the woman who opened him, Shakira. He was widely known for his soothing action. It was mainly used by Emperor Kines, whose condition was unstable due to divine power. Maya understood why the Emperor flower, but could not imagine why he could need the Duke. The girl began to give instructions to the children. At first, she asked Delcane to pour a little water into the basin and bring her a towel. The boy immediately rushed with enthusiasm to fulfill the request, and his sister frowned after him. She asked the priestess what task she prepared for her. The fair-haired explained that now she just had nothing to ask Aisha. The next moment, the girl suddenly seemed suspicious that Maya showed zeal in the salvation of her brother. Only now the priestess thought about the fact that Raka could well kill her when he woke up. She urgently needed to find a weapon. The fair, haired very ambiguously, said that she actually wanted to ask the younger one very important. The saint leaned closer to the girl, quietly whispering her request to her ear, adding them to the persuasion of mystery. It turns out that Maya asked the girl to bring her a pan, and she was very surprised, not understanding why this was needed. The girl decided to explain her position through what she reminded the youngest of the history of the salvation of their pet, with her brother. She said that, supposedly, adults had to conduct a ritual for this, and each person had different tools for this. No matter how strange it seemed, her instrument was a pan, but only Aisha had to keep it a secret. The girl thought for a while, rethinking everything that was said to the elder in her defense. She thought that if all this is true, then the girl had the opportunity to save her life when she grows up. Ultimately, the brunette believed and agreed. So happy, Maya sent her to the kitchen behind the pan. Aisha left the room, closing the door behind her, and then the fair-haired finally remained in the room almost alone. She sat on the nearest chair and wiped sweat from her forehead. During all this time, she was too nervous. Her body was almost dead. The girl was able to take advantage of the free minute and allow the say to exhale. But soon Rock again attracted her attention. She thought that, and if she really had to use a frying pan for self-defense. But if after this Raka had fainted again, then the chances that he would kill her in the future would only become more. The girl tried to reassure herself, and taking care of sleeping Raka, did not notice how quickly the day flew. The children fell asleep early enough, taking their sleeping place in the next room. They were also very tired in the day. Raka was still calmly lying on the bed. So far he has not come to his senses for the whole day. Maya watched this family, just in case, armed with a frying pan, so that in which case not to get into trouble. Suddenly, her gaze fell on the closed window, which was in the room where the older brother of Antia was just resting. Just in case, Maya decided to open this window. A refreshing night coolness immediately slipped into the room, falling into the curtains. The window has now become for a priestess in an additional way to escape, if suddenly something goes wrong. She could not have time to the door. It was quite difficult to look after a person, completely unaware of what kind of reaction to her would turn out to be. In any case, if the mysterious Duke tried to kill her, she could now hit him with a frying pan and hide. She stood with a frying pan in her hands above the unfortunate guy, thinking about something of her own, as if he could wake up at any second. Suddenly, the girl heard a thin voice behind her back, which scaredly shouted to her, "Maya, you can't!" It flew to her by God Tritos. He ordered her to quit the weapon immediately because he thought that she had attempted to rack. The girl with a threatening whisper begged the chick to shut up because he was mistaken and could now wake up Aintia's family. He reassured her and said that only Maya could hear his voice. Of course, who would dare to hear the voice of God? This fact pleased the priestess, because this meant that then she could calmly ignore the request of the chick. He again began to say that she made a mistake, trying to kill a frying man of a living person. She explained that she was not going to kill the Duke at all. She needed a frying pan only to survive. God suddenly became more serious. He said that if she wants to knock the guy off his feet, then he could well die. Maya did not believe him. The chick did not know why the girl was so obsessed with her life, but she should have stopped. Once again, she had to listen to the Lord's requests to return to the temple, because this was her fate. One cannot resist this. Like any other person, the girl did not want to accept the fact that she was destined to die a year later. She already died in her past life, in an instant, having lost everything she had, so she understood the price of her life given to her. Maya was unshakable. If her fate was prescribed so as to die in a year, then the girl intended to change this. Tritos, who had no longer left, eventually surrendered, but asked Maya to remove the pan to the side. God vowed that he would take responsibility and the girl would not die, but she poorly believed in a sharp change in his position. Nevertheless, the chick inspired her confidence, so the priestess agreed to these conditions and reluctantly lowered the frying pan. She would like to know why Tritus dissuaded her like that. And is one oath enough with such an aggressive position? She looked at the sleeping guy and thoughtfully noted that God, obviously, had very much cared for Rake. Tritus could not disagree. Raka was indispensable, but the girl did not understand this. The brunette was a villain. Did God really know that they were in the novel? Or was Raka important just because the main antagonist? Perhaps only with the policies of the villain, the Rhine and Keenis Khan could have a deeper relationship. In any case, a few days later, the whole story with the Antia family will cease to have at least some meaning in her life. The rest of the night passed quite calmly. Maya sat on Raka until she herself fell asleep on the edge of his bed. Tritos remained in the hut until the morning to follow that everything would be in order, and the course of the story was not disturbed even more. He sincerely sat on the windowsill and thought that he had not come to life at all, that Maya would be such a person. As far as he remembered, she was a very delicate and shy child. For some time he was worried that she was so innocent, but this was enough for her physical abilities to exceed others. She had to return to him at 25. He thought that the foresight that her fortune demonstrated was very shocking, but he spoke to stay away from this. But now the girl has become aggressive and had a clear goal in life. Moreover, the threads of fate around her became confusing, much more tangled than ordinary people. Especially, her thread of fate was intertwined with the fate of Rach. But the Duke was the person who used black magic. Since Tritos could not influence the changes that had already begun to happen, he was interested to know what would happen next. The first person in the house, who woke up that morning, became the Duke, slightly lazily opening the eyelids. His head was sick enough, and he tried to understand what only happened to him and why he was lying at his home. On the edge of his bed, he noticed a girl who was sleeping peacefully, sitting on a chair and clouding on his bed with his hands. Scraps of memories told Brunette that it was the same girl who grabbed his hair and threw it to the ground. The guy's gaze was immediately filled with anger, and the dark aura finished his figure. Should he kill her now? How this blonde generally dared to grab his hair, and as if it were not enough, and also push him to the ground. He was a tribute to the defenseless woman, reflecting on how to kill her. Maybe just strangle? And when the pale palm almost reached for the bright curls of the sleeping, the guy pulled himself, thinking about something. Suddenly, he wondered why, before losing consciousness, he did not react to such impudence. A fragile neck, ready to break from one of its movement, and a pale complexion. The girl looked very vulnerable. And then the young man remembered that at the moment when the fair-haired grabbed his head, he felt something strange. For some reason, at the same moment, he felt terrible drowsiness, and the fact that his body was at his limit. This feeling seemed familiar to him. After black magic entered his body, each time closing his eyes, he heard crying. However, at that moment, when he was sleeping, his hands with a fair-haired man, complete silence arose around him, and he did not feel pain. His breath caught his breath. The guy whispered quietly and thoughtfully out loud, "Shakira flower." The effect of her hands had the same influence on the young man as the Shakira flower. They reassured, allowed to fall asleep peacefully. He could not understand why a person could have the same influence as the flower that he was constantly looking for. The young man heard the girl laughed quietly in her dream. She lay on his bed and laughed, completely fearless. The Duke decided to postpone her murder for a while, but muttered quietly, "Walk plenty, it may be your last time." Raka noticed that any touch to this woman caused him weakness. He never heard of such an ability. Maybe he was just sleepy, and therefore it seemed to him that. Throwing away the thoughts of this, the brunette decided to go to check the twins. But as soon as he got out of bed, he found that for some reason, a large frying pan was lying under his feet. This surprised him somewhat. Are Aisha and Delkin played and brought her to this room? The guy did not attach any importance to this and went to the twin room, but they immediately attacked him as soon as he entered. Raka dodged the stream of black magic and reminded Aisha that it was worth attacking only after she became convinced that it was an enemy. However, he could only praise his younger sister for her skills and a quick response to potential danger. The girl crouched on the bed, joyfully meeting her older brother, who was completely not expecting to see him in the doorway. She immediately began to joy her twin, notifying him that their brother is still alive. Aisha said that this evil priestess still saved their brother, but Delcane did not doubt Maya. The children began to ask the elder about his well-being, but Raka wanted to quickly find out from them at all. But the guys could not concentrate on his questions, asking a million of their own, rejoicing in his return. Children also talked about Puiri, who was a devil in the form of a squirrel, which he gave Delcane for his birthday. Once she was on the verge of death, and Raka revived her with the help of black magic, which had some consequences due to risk. The young man tried in every possible way to hide it from his brother, telling the children a bike that adults could heal people and animals. The children were afraid that his brother would become strange, like Puiri. But the evil priestess saved him, and Raka was completely healthy. The Duke, who does not quite understand what salvation of the priestess they talk about, specified whether they mean a woman in his room. The Gemini confirmed and talked about how they helped the girl engage in saving her older brother. Delcane told how he helped, and Aisha said that her part of the help is the secret that she had to keep. But since the brother for children was always an exception to all the rules, Aisha admitted that Maya asked her to bring a frying pan. The priestess told the girl that she had to commit a sacred ritual in order to save Raku, so Aisha obeyed. Looking at the pan in his hand, the Duke was thinking about why it could need a fair-haired man. Maybe the blonde wanted to prepare something so that his younger ones died from food poisoning? Maybe she is a killer? But the guy quickly raped this option, coming to the conclusion that the Mayan killer was somewhat stupid. The Duke had many enemies, so the sudden appearance of a girl could also be due to personal hostility. But this option is unlikely to fit. He saw a fair-haired woman for the first time in his life. It was all strange, to be honest. Well, there were not many exits from this situation, so the brunette decided to wait and watch the woman. Some time passed, and the priestess also woke up, lingeringly yawning after a long, relaxing dream. She immediately noticed that Raka apparently had already come to his senses, since he was not in bed and the room was empty. And if you look like this, then the blonde was even intact and safe. Raka did not even kill her. She even had suspicions that Maya could still die, and she again reborn. But that was not so. In the corner of the room, the girl noticed an old dirty mirror, which obviously had not been used for a very long time. Nevertheless, this did not prevent Maya from seeing in the reflection of the mirrors the same blonde hair and blue eyes that he was used to. She touched her cheeks with her hands and finally became convinced that she was still inside the novel, in the body of Maya. The tension was subsided due to fear for her life, and Maya even woke up with her appetite. She really wanted to eat something as soon as possible. The girl went to the kitchen to check what could be taken to eat and find out how to cook in this world in general. But as soon as she opened the door that she would lead her out of the room, the fair-haired woman came across an equally surprised brunette. Raka studied her with an attentive look, without saying a single extra word. The girl's gaze clung to the fact that in his hand, the young man squeezed her frying pan, and she could not understand why. Yes, and the pan has now become more clean than yesterday. The blonde, awkwardly shifting, noticed that Raka slept. The guy answered her quite coldly that it was so, and also wished Maya good morning, as if nothing had happened. The blonde decided to first raise the topic of what happened, and apologized for grabbing the guy yesterday by the hair. The guy, allegedly misunderstood, asked what happened. She said that she accidentally grabbed his hair and pushed it away. Despite the fact that the Duke did not do anything frightening, his gaze and tone were frightening. He recalled something like that. She guiltily mentioned that she was sorry, and he warned that if Maya once again makes such a mistake, he would go to the next world. After that, he asked whether her apologies ended on these words, or perhaps there was something else. The girl hesitated. Should she agree and end the conversation on this or not? Or did she still admit that she wanted to slap him with a frying pan on the head, worried about her life? At that moment, children entered the room. They complained that they did not want breakfast soup again, and were also surprised that the priestess is still here. The girl greeted the guys cute and wished them good morning, switching her attention from the Duke to the children. Maya already managed to think that the children would be glad to see her, but Aisha was indignant that the girl had not left. However, it did not upset the fair-haired. She asked hopefully, did this mean that she could go home? Without waiting for an answer, the girl waved her hand in parting and rushed towards the exit, hoping that she looked natural. But at the moment when the priestess was already in the doorway, she was suddenly stopped and called back. Raka asked her whether there were some other people from the temple here, except for her. If you think about it, then she was not a priestess, although everyone considered her one. The blonde replied that no, here she is only. The young man suddenly handed over a fair-haired frying pan, and she accepted incomprehensibly. The guy asked, wasn't she going to cook something? He even washed the pan specifically for her. Frankly, it was difficult for her to imagine a villain who stood in front of the sink and washed a frying pan. Nevertheless, it was so. And the Duke expected that the fair-haired person would fulfill his request. He bent closer to the girl. Raka, confident that her cunning plan was unraveled, said quietly that he was sorry if Maya wanted to poison his children. This time, he was going to pretend that he knew nothing, but next time, Maya should have prepared for the consequences. The girl froze in place. She had no idea what kind of food poisoning and murders generally told her the Duke. Without saying anything more on this topic, the brunette indicated to her in the corner of the kitchen and said that the blonde could start cooking there. It was difficult for the girl to understand whether this villain really wanted her to prepare something for them. In the kitchen, the fair-haired found only 3 ingredients: carrots, onions, and potatoes. She decided to cook from what was. Maya looked around, plunging into her thoughts. Well, since she was asked to do this, she had no choice. Perhaps if she could prepare what children will like, then the Duke could finally forgive her. The fair-haired had to rely on his 6 years of experience alone and come up with a suitable dish. She did not have many options, so the idea overtook her head quickly, and she decided to cling to it. Some time passed, and there were already several plates on the table, the food in which it smelled quite tasty. Children looked at the table with surprise, because they hadn't eaten this before. But the fact that these were cooked vegetables were not impressed. Maya, convinced that the taste of fried potatoes, onions, and carrots would not be like that of ordinary vegetables, and asked to try. The girl never in her life saw someone who would not like fried potatoes and deep fruit, so she was not afraid for the reaction. Aisha refused to eat due to the fact that she did not like vegetables, so the first to decide to try the food of Delcane. But the elder brother immediately took the plate from the boy, asking him to wait a bit. Apparently, the Duke still did not fully trust the fair-haired man, so he told the youngest that he himself would try the prepared. He decided that it would be better and safest. Specifically clarifying Lee Maya also considers Maya as well. She was surprised that he was so tense. He saw her cooking. The blonde assured him that the food was not poisoned. The gray cardinal was much more incredulous than she expected. Nevertheless, he tried her potatoes, and after he ate one spoonful of dishes, I tried a few more. Then Delcane asked him, "Everything is fine." The guy replied that the dish turned out to be quite good, and after that, Maya was finally able to exhale with relief. Delcane also said that it was very tasty. The girl had no doubt that fried potatoes were a win-win option. Aisha asked his brother whether he really liked food, and he replied that his sister was also obliged to try. Still referring to the dish a little wary, the girl still tried a small piece. She thought about something for her few seconds, and then suddenly got up from the table, turning to the priestess. To universal surprise, Aisha was so impressed by the priestess that she said she hires her to work and invites her home. Raka could not help but react to such bold requests of his sister, so he asked the blonde to move away and talk to him. The elders went out into the street, and then Raka asked the girl if she had been added to children's food. The girl could not understand why the guy had such doubts, but for some reason, the Duke thought that she had done something with food. The blonde, for a second, in doubt, replied that she did nothing like that. The guy explained to her that Aisha never recognized people next to her, but for some reason, she suddenly changed. The girl suggested that the girl really liked the potatoes, and she generally heard for the first time about Aisha's detachment. The young man stood his ground and stated that if the fair-haired man had not mixed up anything, his sister would never have offered this. Maya was infuriated what the guy asked her about it. Why, in case of doubt, do not ask Aisha herself about her choice, despite the fact that the brunette considered everything that was happening very suspicious. He informed that Maya would go to the castle with them. She was stupefied in surprise. The girl tried to stop him, but the guy asked why she argued. Maya decided for herself that it was not worth contacting the main characters of the novel, even if it was Raka. She could not be sure that she would not be killed, so she lied that she should look after her younger ones. Only this excuse did not scare the brunette at all, because he said that her relatives could also go. Then the fair-haired suddenly said that she had a very jealous husband who simply would not let her work on Raka. He noticed something was wrong, because the saints could not marry, and the girl resourcefully replied that she was not a saint at all. The guy was not so simple to deceive. He knew that besides saints, no one else went in white clothes. Maya tried to convince him that she just liked this clothing, but the Duke did not go to this lies. The girl circled and began to show that her dress is very comfortable, and that's why she wore it. She was not a saint. It was worth admitting that the blonde was a little carried away by her lies, because she began to look very ridiculous, circling. The girl was so trying not to leave the image that she accidentally broke the dress in which she was. Raka, having decided to believe in the girl's words that she was not a saint, noticed that then she has a unique taste. With one hand, the fair-haired person held her dress on the side, where the seam spread. She realized that she clearly crossed the line. She continued to lie that her husband and younger were now closer to the north, about the hour walk from here. Hour of walking. It was too long, so it is unlikely that the Duke would have decided to go along the specified route and check its words. She was delighted, noticing the guy's confusion, thinking that she had finally overcame a critical moment. But then Raka said that, as far as he knew, To the north of here, there were only mountains. The blonde quickly recovered, saying that she had the west. But in the west, too, there were only mountains. Raka told her that the only populated cradle that was from them in the clock was in the east. Maya grabbed onto this hint and confirmed that she was from there, just bewildered, and therefore said incorrectly. The guy calmly admitted that he said a lie. The village was in the south. So the girl lied to him unscrupulously about everything. Noticing how the brunette became angry with her lies, only one thought appeared in the girl's head. It was necessary to run. Raka smiled insidiously, clutching a frightened girl against the wall, and asked, "And where will you run away?" She tried to calm down, and honestly said that she would not run away if he moved away from her, honestly. Instead of fulfilling the request, the young man continued to hang over her. How can he believe her if she lied to him? The girl tried to assure him that not this time, but Raka was sure that she lied to him even now. Mai was difficult to understand. Why then to the dark-haired man to take her at all, if he did not even believe her? The priestess asked if they could agree if she calls him her name. She was going to use the forces of the territory. Her name was not serious, but the girl simply had no other choice. The guy stepped back a little, recovering. He really did not know her name, but really wanted to find out. Initially, she wanted to answer the truth. But if Maya said her name, he would immediately understand that she was a saint. Therefore, in order not to arise unnecessary suspicions, she said that her name was Mimir, but she had no name. The guy frowned and seriously asked the girl, "True, no, or you just don't want to speak?" The blonde honestly admitted that she really had no name. She did not even know who her parents were. Maya's personal life was never disclosed in the novel, since she was just a secondary heroine. The book was dedicated to the main character, Kinesu, so the girl really did not know anything about her current relatives. If Maya once died, then no one would have been doing, because the saint was just a crowd in this story. Perhaps she would be happier, born with another fate, or at least not with such death as her. The young man noticed that, it seems, speaking about the parents of the fair-haired, nevertheless told the pure truth. The priestess could not but rejoice that the young man's voice after this statement became noticeably softer and calmer. She suggested that perhaps, in the magic of rock, there was something like a lies detector who allowed to notice a lie. Perhaps she should have learned dark magic. It could help her earn a lot of money. The young man suddenly frowned again and was alert. He asked coldly, "What just happened in your eyes?" She scaredly asked Raka what was wrong. Maybe he also thought about earnings on his magic? The dark aura around the dark-haired began to thicken. He said that her eyes were strange for a moment. The guy could not get rid of the thought that somewhere he had already seen this vile gaze that he flickered in her eyes. The guy's dark eyes became frighteningly dangerous, and his eyes seemed to be sharp. A herbal of goosebumps ran along the girl's skin. She threw off her scaredly and asked the guy to return to the discussion from which they started. The young man asked if the girl herself knew his name. She replied that yes, he was the Duke of Raka Aintia, and she also knew that he was the owner of terrifying black magic, but so far she could not talk about it. The brunette noticed that she must have been told by the unified name of the Gemini. She confirmed, saying that they were very close. Raka asked as soon as the girl managed to do this. She evasively replied that there were always ways to find a common language. He thought for a while and said that the girl would have approached the role of a nanny for the twins. Their last nanny quit. Maya, without thinking, replied that it was good. The guy, not quite understanding her, asked what she said. The blonde hastened to correct and lied that she was probably distracted and said not what she was thinking about. An awkward silence was hanging between them. The girl was embarrassed and nervous, and the Duke did not understand how to relate to the non-Znojkok. The young man repeated his words that he wanted Mimira, that is, Maya, became the nanny of Delcane and Aisha. He never saw someone to cope with the twins as also good, although he still did not fully trust her. In addition, Aisha herself told them to everything that Maya would like to hire, so he could not refuse his sister in this pleasure. He thoughtfully said that he would ask his servant to look after the girl, while she will work, so as not to worry. The blonde thanked for the invitation, but reminded that she could not go to the castle. She should stay here. The brunette, as if by chance, noticed that the salary of the nanny was 500 cores, but Maya said that she would not lead to this. The guy thought, saying that he understood. The blonde thought that they would finish the conversation on this, but it wasn't there. The young man began to increase the bar of the salary, and the more the girl refused, the more the amount became. When Raka reached the mark of 900 pinks, Maya still had to think about this proposal and shut up. Yes, with such a salary, a fair-haired man could buy everything she needed to move to another country. Noticing that the girl was thinking, Ranka raised the salary of even 1,000 churks, and then she finally agreed. For 6,000 Kirchhoff, one could safely live all his life, so she should have worked out with the guy for only 6 months. Perhaps, working as a nanny, she could not even give Raquel and the main character to meet, thereby saving Canes. The guy found funny that the saint let out for money, and she was so easy to break down on a deal. Maya modestly replied that she did not say that she would be a nanny of the guys because of money. She had her own goals. After some time, the elders returned to the house. Raka's mood was good, so he laughed loudly. The last time he specified with Maya whether she was really ready to become a nanny of children for 1,000 pinks per month. She confirmed and, offendedly pouting her lips, asked him to promise that he would not kill her during this time. The girl decided to admit to her new acquaintance that in fact her life was threatened now, and she was in danger. In fact, she was threatened by the Emperor and Raka, especially the Duke, who in the novel killed everyone who interfered with him, but Maya could not tell him about it. Then the dark-haired man suggested that the girl could be afraid of Aisha's threats. She could understand why the Duke thought so, but nevertheless, he did not understand everything completely correctly. The young man suggested that Maya wanted to kill the twins, and therefore they began to threaten her. She objected. For some reason, due to how often the guy assumed something like that, she felt like the most terrible person in the world. Suddenly, interrupting their conversation, Aisha flew into the room, slamming the door. She wanted to know what the elders talked about in private. Due to the fact that the door opened sharply, hitting a saint, she could not resist and accidentally fell on Raka. But this was not the end, because after that, the girl also stumbled, leaning her body on the young man even stronger. They at all could not maintain balance, and together fell to the floor. Maya turned out to be his back on the floor, and the Duke hung right above her. Suddenly, he felt a familiar smell from the girl. Blag and frightened at the same time, the fair-haired tried to remove the guy from her, asking if everything was fine. His lilac eyes sparkled with a dangerous flame, and he asked the blonde not to push him away. The guy could not understand why, suddenly, because of their proximity, he felt so good. He helped the girl get to her feet, and having acquired her by the waist, suddenly said that he really liked her. The embarrassed children who stood in the doorway were all red, feeling terrible awkwardness and surprise. Delkina asked her sister if she thought, too, that this was an adult relationship. She agreed embarrassedly. Maya immediately pushed the brunette away from herself, no less blushing because the children did not interpret the situation so much. Delkane joyfully cried out that now the priestess was their relative, and Aisha said to not carry nonsense. The boy recalled that her sister said that she liked the saint. She did not object, but said that kinship is different. The children began to argue about whether the girl worthy to marry their brother and whether it was their fate. Aisha got angry and told his brother that he said that no one could save them, but Delkane changed his opinion. The children continued their verbal quail, and, looking at this, Maya decided that it was not the time to inactive. The girl wanted to come closer to the guys and calm them down, but she felt Raka leaning on her. Really fell asleep? Delkane, meanwhile, proved to her sister that she was older, and therefore she had to obey him, although she was only a minute older. Realizing that she had no chance to get closer, the fair-haired supported Raka with her hands, and she screamed to stop the children. Only the Gemini did not hear her at all. They were too busy with their quarrel and almost to tear their hair to each other. Maya and Irony noted that the dogs barking each other right now, and the big dog fell asleep right on her. The saint made another attempt to dissect the dark-haired, and this time he finally woke up. The girl was confused by the guy's sweet smile. It was strange. There was a feeling that Raka was bewitched. Maya hurriedly apologized for naming his name, trying to attract attention, but he said that she could continue. He admitted that he would like, in the future, the girl would not stop turning to him by name. The fair-haired reminded him that it was worth stopping the fight of the twins, and he answered lazily, "All children grow in fights." Delkan grabbed Aisha by the hair, which was very angry, but he did it because his sister grabbed his first. Seeing that the room was very rapidly filled with black magic, the frightened Maya asked the Duke to intervene. He seemed to notice anything around, except for the girl. Maybe he really got stuck. What was wrong with him? Aisha magic for a second gained more and more revolutions, and, unable to stand it, the girl sent a clot of magic right in Delcane. He managed to dodge, and instead of him, the magic headed towards the elders. Raka reacted instantly and stopped the blow. The stream of dark energy rejected the Duke from the palm of the hand and headed for the other part of the room, exploding. This attack is even a wooden floor, because of which the older brother was very dissatisfied with the behavior of his sister. Feeling that Aisha could fly now, Delcana stood up for his sister, taking all the blame for what had happened. Raka pulled himself together and told his sister that she could be punished for using black magic. The guy always warned the youngest that it was allowed to use magic only if her life was threatened by a stranger. Aisha tried to explain to him why she had flared up, saying that Delcane thought that his brother and priestess would be getting used. The girl, in embarrassed and alarmed, demanded explanations from her brother. Since when were they with the priestess in such a relationship? Maya was no less tense than, and everyone else in this room. This situation was very alarming. This situation with black magic could become decisive for her life. As a secondary heroine of the novel, the fair-haired did not give Reiki to answer the attacks of her sister. Instead, she herself volunteered to explain to all the children. The brunette asked her if they should explain their relationship at all. What she did with him was very strange. Maya opened her mouth in indignation, but did not find what to answer. She pushed him back when he hugged her. The young man leaned toward her and asked, "Have you done nothing at all to draw us into this story?" The blonde excitedly turned into the children and whispered Rake that he said so that the children could misunderstand everything. Looking at the cunning and pleased expression on his brother's face, Delcane was sure of the rightness of his suspicions. Aisha darkened. The twin calmly explained to his sister that she was supposed to accept the fact that once Raka would marry the priestess. This whole situation seemed insanely strange to the girl. Something was wrong here, and she did not catch what exactly. Meanwhile, Raka, clouded at the doorjamb, said that it was time for them and Maya to talk to cleanliness. The children went to another room, and the girl, sitting at the table, tiredly dropped her head on the countertop without raising her eyes. Maya thought that now he would return to the topic that she had done something with food, and said that she had not poisoned anything. He did not believe and ordered a fair-haired man to tell the truth, but she had no idea what else to explain to him. Apparently, Raka told her pleasantness, not because he himself wanted it. Maybe she had the ability to cope with his strength? Although in the novel, the extras never had such strength. Raka asked if she wanted to prove that he himself had lost his mind. Maya perfectly understood how strange this whole situation was for the Duke, but once again emphasized that she was telling the truth. The brunette looked at her with a burning look, and from this, Maya became insanely scary and awkward. The girl made an attempt to smooth out the situation and suggested in this case even to pretend that there was nothing. The Duke suddenly directly asked the girl, "Do you hate me?" she asked, as if she had not heard, and then the guy turned away, saying that, probably, he just went crazy. Nevertheless, after a moment, the brunette to continue to drill her with an evil, suspicious look. Emotions gave out a girl. After that, the elders agreed not to tell anyone about what happened and how Raka showed weakness. Since they had such an agreement, Raka could deal with what happened. Already when they returned to the castle, the girl nodded her head. But then what could she do? If he found out who she was, he would send back to the temple. In the next instant, the dark-haired one bent over her and suddenly asked whether she realized that all this meant. She asked if the Duke had in mind that, since he could find out everything himself, asks her to tell the truth on his own. This meant that many people in the castle could find out who she was, but if she admits herself, only he would know. Holding her excitement under control, the blonde asked if this meant that Raka cared about her and her reputation. The guy explained to her that if the girl did not stick out, then someone could definitely find out about her, and she would be killed. She recalled that, according to him, she would be in the castle in safety. He said that he could not be responsible for all people. Maya understood that if someone learns about her and she was returned to the temple, then all her efforts were in vain. Her escape, the work of the nanny, if everything did not work out now, then she could just take her life. Raka admitted that he did not want her death, because no one could cope with the twins as she did. Having weighed all the pros and cons, the girl decided that it was still necessary to start actions in her defense. She seriously looked at the guy and expressed her hope that he would really like her to become a nanny, but at the same time, it seemed to the girl that he considered her a bad person. It was necessary to settle everything while the contract has not yet been signed. That is why it must have been a brunette and threatened her. He said that if others had learned, they would have thrown her out. Raka crouched on the other side of the table and apologized for his doubts. He was really obsessed with the thought of distrust. He finally admitted that the girl was unlikely to harm him, which means there was no need to rush with the disclosure of her personality. The Duke agreed to slowly recognize her, leaving next to him. So let her not even think of quitting work. At that moment, Delcane returned to the house, which not so long ago went outside on behalf of the older brother. Delcane was looking for Shakira flowers, but even if he found them, which was rare, they all faded at once. The girl asked them what kind of plants were, and while Raka refused to answer, the youngest told her the truth. The brother looked seriously at Delcane, and the blonde pretended that she only now realized that they were looking for Aintia in this wilderness. Raka said that his brother must have simply could not find flowers alone. He was going to look for them too. And, heading for the exit from the house, the young man suddenly turned around and told the priestess that she had to go with him. The girl abruptly refused to go anywhere, no matter how the guy tried to persuade her or force her. Raka tried to understand why she was so categorical, and the girl thought that they did not have time to search for flowers. Senior Aintia said that if the girl had a reason not to go out, then he would listen to her and make a decision. She immediately began to invent on the go that her clothes were torn in places, and therefore she could not go out into this form. He said that she could not raise her hands, and then nothing would have been visible. But Maya still bothered it. And the second reason, the blonde called her craving for homebody, which meant that she did not like to go out in general. Neither one nor the second reason was convinced, and he expressed his dissatisfaction to the girl. Delcane intervened in the conversation and said that his brother had to keep his promise and leave the priestess alone. The fair-haired man was madly happy that Delcane, like a little angel, always saved her in difficult situations. Raka was still unsatisfied with the reasons for the girl, but could not but keep his promise, especially under Delcane. The fair-haired praised Delcane for saying such correct things and told him to always keep his word. She, a little mockingly, said that his older brother Raka would just give a good example to her youngest. The Duke had no choice but to go in search of a flower himself, leaving the children under the supervision of a new nanny. Removing into the depths of the forest, the gray cardinal thought that if Maya runs away, then the poor consequences would wait for her. When the guy finally left, the girl was able to rest for the first time in a day, settling in one of the rooms on the windowsill. While she was sitting and thinking about her own, Delcane suddenly brought her a cup of a gagged drink, for which she thanked him. It was very funny to observe how different the characters had every member of the Aintia family. Suddenly, Delcane's face became somehow unreasonably gloomy, and the boy asked for forgiveness before Maya. He said that Raka did not express emotions very well, but he was sure that his daughter, in law, that is, he liked Raka. The blonde decided to first clarify that misunderstanding and explain to the youngest that there was nothing between her and his brother. The boy suggested, judging by the red face of the daughter-in-law, that she also had feelings for her brother. Despite all the excuses of Maya, Delcane said that he had never seen before his brother looked at someone like her. Maya again said that, obviously, the boy understood everything misunderstood. He replied that he saw this in books. The brunette definitely accurately noticed the sparks of feelings in their gulza, so the elders could not fool him in his own words. He understood that the daughter-in-law was angry, but the boy very much asked her to forgive her older brother at least once. Despite the misunderstandings with Raka, so far the most difficult person with whom she had to deal is Delcane. Having reached the desired place in the forest, Raka discovered that the younger brother was right and all the flowers fled. This was a big problem for him. He had never encountered a complete absence of Shakira flowers. The flower belonged to the imperial family, so it had no other choice but to get it secretly. The guy wanted to look a little more, but he heard male voices not far from himself. They also looked for flowers. These were imperial knights. They needed Shakira flowers. As the blessing ceremony was interrupted, the brunette noticed to himself that recently in the forest, it was strange quietly. Apparently, the emperor secretly planned something with the temple. The knights found that there were no colors about which the priests spoke about, so they were going to leave. Raka, hiding behind a tree, at that time decided to think over everything that he heard from the knights. Firstly, he found out that the emperor arrived in the temple in order to hold a blessing ceremony, but it had to be stopped. Secondly, the location of Shakira's flowers did not have a relationship to the imperial family, and something else happened. Thirdly, at present, flowers did not bloom here, and he needed to come up with some kind of decision. In this case, Maya, who possessed the same abilities as Shakira flowers, was really needed for him. Just in case, he wanted to prevent her from getting away from the work of the nanny. But as a result, everything worked out, and this is for the better. True, now another obstacle arose for Raka. Why was he and the girl so good? It alarming him. Finding next to her was like the effect of the Shakira flower. He felt that he was losing all his energy. His mind and body, which lost control, wanted to be near it. Possible. Contact is something like mediation. Speaking of touch, one specific person immediately came to the mind of Raka. He thought about the Rhine Adrian. She was also a girl who was able to immerse a person in a dream with just a touch. He was able to find her after a long investigation, but Maya was different from the Rhine that he knew. He could not let her go. Now the Duke had to buy a blonde some clothes in the nearest village. Since Maya's clothes broke, and she did not have the other, Raka felt the obligation to ensure her. While the girl was waiting for Raka's return, she felt that she was very tired and thought about taking a nap. She quickly fell asleep, and Raka, when he returned home, noticed her sleeping on the hall in the hallway. Trying not to make noise and not to disturb the girl's sleep, the young man gently sat down near her. He propped his head with a brush and hoped that the girl could relax and sleep well. The guy could not believe that he needed this woman, not even knowing about her real person. After some time, Delcane looked into the room to make sure that his brother had already returned from a walk. Raka asked the younger if Maya did something suspicious while he was not there, and Delcane said no. Also, the brunette asked whether Aisha was still puffing on him, and her evil cries from the next room was the answer. The door that was open until this moment closed. Delcane thought it was not to wake the priestess. Delcane once again became convinced that his brother liked this girl, since he cared about her. Raka asked the younger that the next day in the morning they would go home. Delcane nodded and went into the room to sleep. Hiding behind the door, he thought that, as he read in the book, at the beginning of the journey, lovers should have been in private more often. Therefore, in fact, the boy did not want to sleep. He simply allowed his brother and priestess to retire and have a good time together.